Welcome to a new episode of the Success Grid podcast. Here with me today, Ian Moyse. He led 7 small firms and grew four to exit. He led sales teams, and his current role is Chief Revenue Officer, leaving marketing and sales. Ian, welcome to the grid.
Hey, thank you so much for inviting me.
Awesome to have you here. So first, let me ask you, what changed your story along the years? You came into IT first, then you went to sales and marketing, and now we are talking about business revenues, chief revenue officers. What happened?
Sure. Yeah. So, I think it's about adapting and through your career. You're right. I started as a programmer and moved into sales purely at the time, many, many years ago, purely because I thought, I was aspirational. And in those days, salespeople had mobile phones. That wasn't a common thing. That was a luxury, and it was the size of a suitcase.
Exactly.
Company car and all the other things. And my opinion at that point was, I know what I'm talking about. I love tech. I understand this stuff. How hard can it be to sell it? But I know what I'm talking about. I know the hard bit's got to be understanding it. So I moved. Moved into sales and started again, so to speak. Right, I've got this knowledge. I didn't have any selling skills, didn't know what was involved, and started in inside sales. Worked hard, was promoted to field sales, and over the years then started managing people through to the position that I'm lucky to be in today, where I have a leadership position, and I work with a great many, again, young salespeople now, who I continue to learn from because they're going through their journey like I did, and they're finding their way. They're finding new ideas and how to do things. So whilst I've got a lot of experience, I think it's also important that you don't know everything. You need to constantly evolve, learn, adapt. And I think we've all learned that in the last 12 to 18 months of COVID, that you can't take anything for granted, right? We're all now adapting to working remotely, to using video more than we've ever done before, to talking to customers in their home.
Yeah, exactly. Technology is evolving faster than we can probably keep up. Yeah, exactly. So, now, are you involved in social selling in any way? Because you are like now the chief revenue officer. So your job title is about like revenue or seeing revenues of the company. So is social selling another tool for that?
Yeah, absolutely critically. And a couple of things around social selling, I guess, is it's a term that many people are hearing. The first thing I'd say, I think the name can be misleading because what I think I get why it's called that. It's a nice buzzword. It sounds good, but in reality, social selling is using social media in a sales environment to invoke conversation and engagement with a prospective customer that ends up as a real world conversation. But it doesn't it's not as snappy as social selling, right? So because often I get people talk to me, and I've trained people on social selling and spoken on it, and I get people say, it's not right for us. Well, why not? Well, because we can't sell our product over the internet. It doesn't work that way. Social selling is about engaging with other human beings, not about selling your product over the internet. And that's a big mistake and misassumption a lot of people make. And the reason I got involved in it was by accident. It wasn't I didn't go out going, oh, there's this thing called social selling. That term wasn't around at that point. What I realized was the biodynamic was changing.
Yeah, exactly. Over the years, especially with social media, customers have a lot of options, and they can search and a lot of things. Please continue.
I remember the day when you'd go to see a prospective customer and they'd have a little bit of knowledge. You might have spoken to them on the phone. They go, yeah, come and talk to me. And you talk to them about your business, your company, yourself. And it was a whole learning exercise. Today, they know so much about so many things because of the internet gives you anywhere, anytime, full access to a volume of information and of opinion, of reviews, of data points, of insights that you need to figure out, well, what, customers tend to talk to you later than they would previously in the sales cycle because they'll do their own research. So what I realized is buyers were changing. We were changing. I'm different as a customer. So you were saying in terms
exactly.
of we behave differently.
Mm.
So I was looking for all the way along. It wasn't a sudden epiphany moment. It was adjusting my sales process and that of my teams to what do we do differently? How do we need to behave differently to remain relevant in this new buyer dynamic? How do we still get conversations with prospective customers? And social selling does not replace the traditional sales process. It complements and it's another tool in your kit bag. If you can pick up the phone and speak to a prospective customer, do it. Because social selling is not quick. It is not a quick gratification of send them a LinkedIn connection, send them a message, and next thing you've got a phone call. Sometimes it works that way.
Yeah, you see a lot of this. Some people sending messages to your Facebook or LinkedIn, or do you want to buy this? Here is the link. Go buy. It doesn't work like that.
Yeah, and they send and typically it's a sales pitch, right? It's not I want to invoke a conversation. Can we have a conversation about what we're finding and providing some insight? I'm talking to many leaders like yourself in this area, and here's some data that I'm finding, and I wanted to have a chat with you about. So it's not insightful conversation. What it is typically is a sales pitch that you would have previously sent on email, now being sent on a social platform. But that's not going to, moving in platform is not going to work. So social selling for me is a methodology, and it is a very subtle methodology with lots of nuances in it, and very few people are getting it right. But when you do get it right, it will get you conversations, it will get you engagement with prospective customers. But the big thing to understand is it can take time.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
don't say to your salespeople, how many emails have you sent today? Well, how many meetings has it created this week?
Yeah.
Because
So,
that doesn't work.
yeah. So if we can define social selling in one sentence, it's like the interaction between the buyer and the seller in a conversational way. That could be it, for example.
I would describe it as using social media as a method to get engagement with a prospective customer.
Cool. Awesome. So, like you mentioned, some companies are still not engaged in social. Do you think that these companies are still behind? They are not growing. They are not increasing their revenues because of that.
Well, yeah. So all the stats that, and people can go and search this, but all the different stats that come out in the market from all different reports all show that organizations that have correctly adopted social selling as part of their sales process are continually more successful because, and it's pretty fundamental, right? If you're still selling like you did 10 years ago and the customer's not behaving that way, you're going to have less success than you did then. So, and I think a big challenge for many firms is this whole allowing people to engage using social media platforms typically falls under where? It falls under marketing. Right? And I call it the marketing police, quite bluntly. Often there is the corporate marketing police who will say, you can't go on social, you can't do this. Anything you post on social, you have to put a disclaimer. This does not represent my company. Boom, 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 boom. There is so much policing of it. It's restrictive that stops the salesperson being able to use it as an effective platform. And more so, not just restrictive, they're not encouraging these behaviors and skills. They're not training people. You need to train your salespeople on where does social media and social selling fall into the process. Train them how to do it. Train them well, and teach them about personal branding. Teach them about the importance of their personal brand as an individual that complements the business and their sales process.
Yeah, exactly. So you mentioned that personal branding. Now, personal branding in social, for example, does it mean like the person that owns the business be there, sharing his message, sharing his course, sharing his videos, sharing his audios? This is what you mean. Also, in ad type of things, because I don't know. Generally nowadays, I see social in general like what they call the organic reach is like not so much. So these companies now wants people to do ads, not just put a post there and that's it. A lot of people can see it, not like 10 years ago or 5 years ago.
Yeah, so a number of areas you invoked me to speak about there. So firstly, everyone has a personal brand, right? People will be going, oh yeah, well that's for celebrities or well known. No, it's not. You have a personal brand, and it's not just on social media. Your personal brand is how others perceive you.
Mhm.
That is your personal brand, right? So if for example, they look at Dave and say, Dave, Dave's really well known for. Dave's an expert in car mechanics and stuff. That's what he's known for, right? That's his personal brand. He's a fantastic mechanic, or Sue is a fantastic artist, or Alison is a fantastic. That your personal. What is it others would say about you? What do they believe? If they had to describe you, how would they describe you? And that's your personal brand.
Mhm.
Now, when you move on to social, that personal brand can go global very effectively and very cheaply with little effort. That's
Mhm.
the difference that social's made, right? Previously, it would have been people who dealt with you physically in the real world and knew you. A few number of people would know your personal brand. Do you know Peter? Yeah, yeah. Or what was Peter? And they tell them. Now you can represent your personal brand publicly in a global way. And if you have a social profile, you're already doing it,
Mhm.
right? And if someone finds you on social, or if someone goes and Googles you, whatever they find about you that they look at is going to be their perception of you and your brand as a human being,
Mhm.
right? So if they find 6 articles about you talking expertise around architectural engineering, they'll probably figure out this lady knows what she's talking about. Oh, look at this stuff. Oh, this person sounds like an authority in that. They've made that decision based on whatever they found. And if you don't control and manage your personal brand and critically in an authentic way, this isn't about faking it.
Mhm.
This is about just representing yourself in the way that if anyone finds anything, searches for me, what are they going to find? And is it representative of me in the best way and what I'd like them to see?
Mhm.
So the first thing
Exactly.
I say to people is go and Google yourself in an incognito browser or someone else's PC, so it's neutral as to how the world would see you. Google your name and just see, do you even appear under your name at all, and how many pages down, and if so, what appears? Look at your social profiles from an anonymous perspective, not from your PC because you've got
Mhm.
logins and
Mhm.
cookies,
Yeah.
etc. Go and see what others can see. And if you look at it from an independent viewpoint and find that they can see all your Facebook profile pictures of you out having fun and drinking, that's your choice. But did you realize that's what someone could find and see of you? And if that's all they've seen of you, what impression does that give? So think about if you're going for a job interview, as many are under COVID with furlough,
Mhm.
etc.
Mhm.
What might people find of you? And if and you can argue, well, it's not fair, they shouldn't be looking. But if it's publicly available on the internet, I'm afraid they have every right to look at it. That's like saying I've put a website up, but I only want certain people to look at it, but it's accessible to everyone. Well, you can't. That's not the way it works, right? Let's be real.
Yeah.
So you need to be aware of anything people can find on you will give them an impression, a first impression, a perception of what you're about and who you are. Do they trust you? Do they like you? Do they respect you? How do they will make a feeling about you, whether it's correct or not, they will do it, right? That's how humans, how we digest and work.
Yeah. Exactly.
So you need to think about what is your personal brand? What do you want to be known for? And how do you come across currently? And in today's post-COVID world, more people check other humans out online than ever before. So we're talking here. I'm sure, Hussein, you check my profile. I could check you out while we're talking, and you wouldn't even know it, right? My hands could vanish below the screen,
Yeah.
and on a separate screen here, bring up your LinkedIn profile, and I could be reading things and thinking, oh, okay, I'll ask him that. Oh, what about that? It's so easily done in this remote working world that
Mm.
we all need to. I would suggest everyone should assume anyone you engage with in a business capacity is likely to check you out online, and therefore If you're not happy with what their perception may be of you, go and do something about it. Go and edit. Go and put a
Exactly.
better picture up, etc. It's in your control to be as professional as you can and own your personal brand
Yeah,
before
exactly.
it owns you.
Exactly. So speaking of social, like there's a ton, but maybe the only one that could be like a professional probably is LinkedIn, right? The others one could be unprofessional social media places.
I would disagree, and I'll tell you why.
No.
Because I often get asked by people, well, which in business, which social platform should I be on? And my answer to them is, where are your customers? Where's your buyer persona? So if you're selling B2C,
Mm.
right, your customer is probably not on LinkedIn. They might be in their job role, but as a consumer, they're not. They may engage with you more on Facebook, or if your product is more graphical, maybe it's Instagram. So I always say to them, there isn't a definitive, this is the best platform for you. It's what is your product or service? Where is your customer? So if you are selling designer furniture, or you're selling, often it's a gadget. If you're selling some type of gadget to consumers, then Instagram may be the best place, right?
Exactly.
If you're selling engineering specialist widgets or enterprise technology software,
Mm.
there's not much great. There's a picture of that doesn't really make sense. Your
Yeah.
customers, to your point, your customers are probably business buyers who are on LinkedIn. But I'd also suggest the typical two I see are for consumer. If I had to categorize, would probably be more likely Facebook and Instagram, and for B2B, more likely dealing with a person, LinkedIn and Twitter.
Awesome.
Business people are often on Twitter, and I would look at a prospective customer on LinkedIn, look at that person I want to engage with, but I will also then go and look to see if they're on Twitter, because what I'm looking to do is understand them as an individual. And if they're on Twitter, what do they share? What content do they share? Who do they follow? What type of content do they reshare? And if they're resharing articles about, I don't know, transforming employment engagement in the workplace, if they're sharing that content of someone else, they're probably interested in it and they're engaging with it because they've just shared it. Therefore, it tells me something about them, where they care about. They're obviously someone in their business that cares about the employees' well-being. So that's something I've now learned about them and their profile. Right now, I might comment on that article. I might have some insight that I can add, where maybe they've shared something and I could add comments saying, I really love this, but I also found this other article that talked about another new idea here. I'm now engaging with them authentically on a piece of content they've shared of someone else's. And guess what? In doing so, they will see that I've done that. They may then come back and look at my profile. Who's Ian? Who's this guy that's made this comment? That's interesting. It's so obvious they may click, in which case my personal brand, when they land on my profile, needs to look incredibly professional and relevant to who I am. And they may look at it and go, oh, Ian talks at these events and he does advise. They guess what? They might choose then to follow my content. Straight away, we've started to get a little bit of engagement, right? I've got someone that I'd love to have a conversation with who's just chosen to follow me because he or she spotted me engaging with their content. Now, I don't suddenly reach out then and try and sell them something, right? You start to build a little bit more engagement.
Yeah.
Often happens over a period of weeks or months. You end up having conversation online electronically that ends up with something along the lines of, we seem to chat, we seem to follow a lot of content and the same people. It might be worth having a chat sometime.
Mm.
And it becomes a natural thing to have a conversation, and you have a conversation. It's not, here's my cold LinkedIn sales pitch. Would you like to jump on a call where I can sell you something?
Yeah. That direct way is gone now with the consumer knows better than the buyer probably. So do you have your own story with social selling?
Yeah, I've had many successes, but I've had many not successes with it. Right? And that's the thing I think people have got to realize. There is no do these things and it will guarantee success. The same as pick up the phone and call someone. Some people you get through to, some you don't, right? So it's just another method within your kit bag of trying to engage with prospects. But yeah, I've had through using social selling, I have gone through from nothing through to engagement and meetings with CIOs of global multi-billion-dollar companies. But it's been a slowly thing, right? It's been authentically liking some of their content, not just liking everything, but liking something that was relevant, maybe commenting on it, maybe tagging them in. There's nothing wrong if I write a blog of a thought leadership piece on digital transformation on for the remote worker, an area of something I've got expertise in, and that individual follows people and shares content and talks about that type of stuff. There's nothing wrong with me. I could reach out to them and say, I've written this blog. What do you think? Is there any comment you could give me to be in my blog? There's a great one. Right, invite them to partake. They may give you a comment. You've now had a little bit of engagement. But at worst case, I can tag them into it. I can post it and tag them in with a number of other people like them. So I haven't targeted just them. Tag in them with a few people you know. And invariably what will happen is some of them will start commenting, having seen the post, and they may comment as well. You've got engagement. And guess what? In doing so, they've noticed you exist. They've noticed Ian exists. And, oh, I loved your article. What if they post, I love your article, Ian, but have you considered such and such? They're now invoking a conversation with you on social, and they've spotted you and they've viewed your profile. So many times I've had people send me a connection invite through doing something like that, and that's someone that I would like to connect with, but I haven't sent a connection invite. I've done something that they've sent it to me. They've invited me to connect. What better way to start to engage and lead to a conversation where you might end up doing some business together at some point?
Cool. So what are the characteristics of today's buyer? What do you think they are?
I think they're more informed than ever before. They're more resistant typically to conversation, because we all do it, right? We all shield. I'm sure you do. We look at our mobile phone, a call coming in, and we'll glance at it and go, I don't know who that is. It's so easy to let it go to voicemail and to shield your call. And so you've got this shield around you of technology that says, I will choose who to engage with and talk to when I see value in doing it. But if not, no one gets to me. Right. So therefore, the buyer can feel they're informed, that you can look things up on the internet, you can figure stuff out yourself. Go, I'm not interested in talking to them. So it's harder than ever before to have a cold conversation with a prospective customer, if you allow it to be. If you stick to old traditional methods only, then you will get through to fewer people. And everyone I talk to in sales leadership positions reports the same. I want more leads. I need hunter salespeople. Everyone's got the same problem across industry, across size of company. It's about putting yourselves in the shoes of the buyer, and we're all that buyer at different times.
Exactly.
And figuring out, why would they want to talk to me? What's the value in them having a conversation with me? And it isn't about hearing a pure functional sales pitch of, here's what my product does. What people want, I believe, is insight. If I said to you, saying, not worry about our product, but would it be interesting? Let's have a conversation about what other people in your type of business, other leaders like you. I've had the pleasure of speaking to 30 other leaders in companies like yourselves, including competitors, in the last month. And there are a number of interesting insights that I've gleaned. And I'd welcome a short conversation to see if there's any value I can give to you and any value you can give to me. And it may end up that we find there's some common ground where we get mutual benefit. There may not, but what harm would a conversation do?
Yeah, exactly.
How many times have you had a conversation that has led to some benefit you didn't expect? But unless we have a conversation, you're not going to find out. So would you be open to? But I haven't told you anything about product, and I'm not trying to sell you something. And in that conversation, I don't suddenly flip into, and can I try and sell you this? Right?
You need to talk to people to know what they actually want, right?
Everyone right now in every role has got some pain going on of some type or some sort, and everyone is looking to do something, gain something, be more successful, right? Everyone's got challenges and opportunities. So, why don't we have a conversation about your challenges and opportunities to see if there's any mutual engagement that we might have that might benefit you or me, and let's have that. And senior, I've had so many conversations with senior people where I've said, do you know what, I don't think I've got any value there, but I've had a conversation. They've said something. Oh yeah, well, one of my problems is this, and that's nothing to do with what I do today. But I've managed to give them value because I've said that's interesting because I know someone who's just done that and has looked at this and done that. Would you like an introduction? So I've given them value that we would neither of us would have known about, and introduced them to someone that solved a problem for them that wasn't me. Now, maybe I'll talk to you in 6 months' time, and or 3 months. How did you get? Oh my gosh, Ian, that was fantastic introduction. I've given you value, but it wasn't about selling my product or
Yeah,
service.
exactly.
But we've now got some rapport. We may have another conversation.
Yeah.
Well, this is what I'm looking to do, Hussein. And Ian, let's talk again in 9 months. It's not right now. But I've got a dial. I now have an open dialogue with you, right?
Exactly. So maybe the customer, for example, anyone probably wants something but doesn't need it now. Maybe wants it later. Probably, maybe. This is why you need to have a conversation, right?
Yeah, everyone has got a pain and opportunity. What I've got may not solve that pain or opportunity, but in having a short conversation with me, I may present other insights and value to you that isn't intrinsically my agenda today. But unless we'd had that conversation, I've had so many conversations with people where it's a short 15-minute conversation, and it hasn't ended up right now with them becoming a prospective customer for me. But we've built some rapport, and I've given them some value through it, either through referring them to someone, or giving them an idea, or telling them something I've learned in the past, or I've learned something from them, and they've said, "Look, Ian, you should talk to Robert over at that company because they're at it." And they've introduced me to someone else. Because if two human beings engage, often there's a value or benefit they can bring each other that isn't necessarily the direct one that you both want thought at the beginning, right? Too many salespeople talk to a customer on one plane, which is, can I sell you my thing and can I do it now? And if not, there's no value in us speaking. Yes, there is. Of course there is.
Yeah, most of them are not good. So what's the biggest challenge you see facing people at this moment, or sales teams or revenues facing companies, that type of thing, especially with COVID now?
Yeah, I think the biggest challenge is driving the motivation to be productive and successful with all the challenges that have been around it. I think too many people are using COVID and the challenges as an excuse, as opposed to we've seen many businesses very smartly pivot, right? There's been many businesses really challenged by COVID and individuals who have pivoted and gone, what can I do about it? Well, okay, I can't do business as usual, and it has had an impact. Look at restaurants, right? Restaurants who went, actually, we've still got cooking facility, we've still got people like our food, but we can't have them come to us. Right, let's flip and deliver. Let's offer different things. I had, during this period, for example, at one point, a weird example, ice cream vans for children couldn't go around and stop randomly. So what we had one that contacted everyone, posted it all on social, said, look, I own an ice cream van. I can only come if I'm pre-booked, but I can come and I'll do these massive special ice creams, humongous, special ice creams. And they were booked left, right, and centre. We couldn't, we got a slot, and all the kids around right here, all out the back, and each one was more expensive. But that individual had found a way to drive revenue within the rules and to continue doing business in a different way. He pivoted to, how can I still do business, or do I just give up and say, well, I'll just wait then?
Yeah,
it's you've got to adjust and be agile and be open to, how do I do things differently? How do I engage with people differently? The world and business has got to go on, right? But yes, there's challenges, and yes, some of them are more difficult than others to overcome. But I think that's the biggest thing is resiliency and being willing to change and adapt and figure out how to do it. We're doing it right now, right? I'm used to going visiting customers and shaking a hand and seeing them in their office and buying them a coffee and building. We're having to do it over video. So we're doing it
Exactly.
over video. We're having
You
to and get on with it.
you have to adapt. You have to adapt. And now I think companies with COVID, because it's been like a year and a half, so the ones who adapted, that's good for them. But the one who didn't, they should, if they are not still closed, if they are not closed, they should adapt and try to go adapt around that.
Yeah,
So what?
and I think the thing is, as we come out of COVID,
Mm,
not just to fall back into we'll just go back to what we did before,
mm,
but to continue to think, what can we do differently? We've just proved that we can adapt, we can find ways to do things. So continue to be creative, continue to adjust and adapt. Don't just fall back into your old ways overnight for the sake of doing it, because it's
yeah,
very easy to do so.
yeah, exactly. So we spoke about personal branding. So what is the most important basic element that we should be done now for anyone in regards
Yeah,
to personal branding?
so the easy one, and I suggested during COVID, I said many times to people and in discussions such as this, is you've got some time on your hands, you're sat at home, and you've got the equipment. Go and refresh, go and check yourself out. Search yourself on search yourself and see what's found, and then on all your profiles, go through them and update them,
Mm,
polish them. Look at what other people have done. By all means, come and view my profile. I'm not saying mine's perfect, and I always look. I'm continually looking at what other people do. A profile will pop up, and I'll see something, and think that's neat, and I will plagiarize it. But there's no copyright on ideas of, oh, I like the way they've done that and presented that, or I'm constantly looking to improve. For example, on LinkedIn, they have just launched the
mm,
fact that you can have a cover story. Right. So if you
mhm,
look at my LinkedIn profile and either hover over the photo or watch, you'll see the photo turned into a video.
cool.
If you, and if you click on it, you've got a 30-second video clip. What it's free. So as soon as that appeared, I thought, great, I'm using that. I'm making the most use of the platform that I can. Free platform,
Mhm,
fill it in. Too often I see people who not got a profile picture, not got a banner. They're not using the
mhm,
banner that you can have across the top.
mm,
They now won't be using the video. They haven't written a nice summary content piece, which is personable about them. Go and read mine. It talks about I got into computing at the age of 14 and da, da,
mm,
da, da. It tells you something about me,
mm.
genuinely, authentically as a human being. It's not an electronic CV. You can make it very personable and
Yeah,
give
exactly.
and put character into it.
Yeah,
Go and do it. Go and tune it up. It costs you
yeah,
nothing but a little bit of your time in front of a keyboard.
yeah. So how can business owners deal with rejection, or you as a company, how do you deal with rejection, or salespeople, how they deal with rejection?
That's a really interesting one, and I think a very pertinent one because a lot of people get that wrong. So I'll tell you my belief on this is you're gonna if you're not getting rejected, you're not being proactive enough because
Exactly. Yes. Yes.
your product or service cannot be right for everyone at every instance at every time. It can't.
Mm,
So you're going to have conversations with people who choose another product or service. Either say, look, you're not right for us. They say the timing's not right, or they choose something else.
mm,
And I think that is the time when you can be the most professional. Here's what I would do is, do you know what? Thank you so much for telling me why this isn't right for you, because I've learned something there,
mm,
and that's great feedback. And here's a point: when a customer's, if they haven't told you it's wrong, they just said, look, we're not going with you, we're going with a competitor.
mm,
How about this? Uh, Fantastic. Thank you for telling me. Would you mind if I have a few minutes of your time for the investment I gave? Maybe you've had lots of phone calls with them or meetings, whatever. Right? I want to have a phone call. And
mm,
I say to them, I'm not going to try and change your mind. All I would simply like to do is have a few moments of your time for you to give me some value of for me to learn from. Is that okay? And nearly all of them say yes, great. And then you ask them, say, I respect the fact that we did something wrong here, or our product has something, or service has something that didn't meet your needs, would you be kind enough to walk me through what we could have done differently, either by the product or our approach or engagement with you, so that we could learn from that and perhaps improve for next time in a future customer engagement?
Yes.
And I'll tell you, you will get so much value. It might be, well, we didn't like the way you engaged with us on this, or actually, yeah, but the competitor did a much better deal with this, because what they did, instead of just coming and presenting to us, they suggested a proof of concept, and they came in and set it up and made it. Whatever it is, you're going to learn something that you didn't know by not asking, and you get more engagement with them, and that customer now thinks of you even more professionally, because you say, I care about what we got wrong, and at the end you thank them. Thank you for being so genuine with us and giving me that feedback. And if there's any opportunity in the future where we might engage, I would love it. I really enjoyed our engagement together, and I really appreciate you taking the time to do this for me. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
You don't know that they've made the wrong decision, nor do they. You don't know that in 3 months' time something
Things
will have
might
gone
change.
wrong,
Yeah.
and they might call you back, right? But even if they don't, you got value from losing. You learned something. You
No,
didn't lose. You didn't lose.
you got feedback. Always,
You won.
I think failure should be looked at as a feedback, I believe, right?
I agree.
Okay. So along your journey, did you have someone affect you personally?
Yeah, good and bad, I guess, right? So I think everyone you engage with and work, particularly people you work with and work for, will affect your opinion, and how you behave and affect. So I've seen the good, where I've had really good colleagues and mentors who have coached me and have guided me into thinking about things differently. And I've had the bad, where I've witnessed the bad behaviors of individuals and how they have treated people, etc. So, and I think both are valuable, because by seeing the bad,
You
you
learn, yeah.
by categorizing it that way, it will you learn from that and think, well, I'm not going to behave that way. I'm not going to be disrespectful for people.
Yeah.
And for example,
Yeah.
in interviewing and recruiting people, I always try, where possible, to give good feedback to the individual that they can learn from, right? Because I've been the candidate where
Yeah.
you've not been selected for a role, and you don't know why. You don't know why. You can't learn from it. You just know, yeah, we chose another
Yeah.
candidate. I give feedback to them. Look, I think I've got a stronger candidate. And the reasons being, I don't think in the interview, and I'm going to be very transparent with you and give you my opinion, which you have every right to disagree with. But in doing so, I would hope it may give you some insight that you might learn from, so that in future interviews you can be stronger. And I'd like to, would you like the feedback? Yeah, yeah. And I may say to them, you let yourself down when we were going through this part of the interview process, because your questions were very formulaic, and you didn't probe us, you didn't push us enough on why and how are we doing this, and you didn't challenge us. But other candidates did. They really asked us far deeper questions, and it gave us more confidence in how they would behave in front of customers, blah, 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 blah. And I've had people come back to me afterwards say, thank you so much for the feedback, because no one else has taken the trouble.
Yeah. Nobody.
They've invested time in the interview, right, or coming to meet you for an interview. So there's things like that, right, that I have learned through how I've been treated. I have realized I wanted more info. I didn't get anything from this, and yet I traveled to your interview 3 times, and I put all this effort in, and all I do is feel negative at the end. If I've put all this effort in, I've got nothing. Wouldn't it be nice if they at least made you feel good, said you were a fantastic candidate, and by the way, if you need me as a reference to any other interview, because I thought you were fantastic, it's just someone else was just a bit better, and I've hired them and they were, but any way I can help you in your next job role. And people are so grateful. No one else has said that to me, and they remember you in a positive way. Who knows, right, that in the future our paths may cross again, and they'll remember me in a positive light, or they may refer a customer to me, or another. They might know another salesperson 3 years down the line who's looking for a job, and say, go and speak to this guy, because I really thought I would
Yeah.
have loved to.
I actually love this one. Because I believe none of the companies, whether you apply online or you go in person, they tell you why they rejected you. They tell you you are not a fit.
Yeah.
But I believe they should tell the person, because maybe he can improve on it. They should tell him, because he will keep interviewing 20 companies and will never get hired because no one is telling him what's wrong from their perspective.
That's
Yeah.
exactly my opinion.
Yeah.
Yeah,
They think it's something that it's a monopoly on them, that they shouldn't tell the person. You cannot know the reason. This is ridiculous.
It's constructive feedback, right?
Yeah,
And
exactly.
even down to their CV not being a lot. This is what I've picked a few people up on and told them is your CV and your LinkedIn have different dates on them. They're not. Other people are going to spot that. You need to correct this, or there's this spelling mistake, a majorly one here. And I've told people, said, look, I hope you don't mind. And they've gone, oh, I never spotted that. And now I've just helped them be better for the next one. They've invested time in applying to your company and showing interest. Be respectful in return.
Exactly. So let me ask you, what one takeaway listeners should take from this episode?
Sure, that's one takeaway. Crikey. I think what would be the one thing that carries me through and helps me. I think I'm going to go for be resilient no matter what. Be positive no matter what, right? Because I and always no. Do you know what? I'm going to change it. Apologies.
Okay.
Always be learning. Always be learning. Because that's one that I get people who I interview and I've interviewed for who think that because you're in a senior position or you've done it for years, you know it all. Right? I don't know it all. I've got a lot of experience of situations because I've been through more of them. But if I hire a young salesperson, and I've got two at the moment that I've just recruited, and they will learn things from me and I can give them value in mentoring and how to do things. But guess what? They're coming up. I've created a culture when I work where come up with ideas and you can absolutely, and they're coming up with ideas and suggesting things. And some of them are ones where I'm looking at it and going, that's a really good idea. Just because I didn't think of it, they did. That's a really good idea. Maybe we could tune it and do this. Fantastic. Because they've got a different journey they've been on. They've got a different context, a different information base. They think differently. Therefore, they will come up with, if you go in a room with a whiteboard and say, come up with 50 ideas how to do something, people will come up with different ideas. Don't expect the leader, by definition of their role or job title, to come up with all the best ones.
Exactly.
They'll always be learning from people around you. I've got books here I'm still reading. If I read a sales book, do I expect to read all of it and have an epiphany of, oh my gosh, I didn't know any of that? No. But what I'm looking for is in that sales book, if I find two little nuggets of new things I didn't know or hadn't thought of, I've just got better. I've got better.
Exactly. This is what people should do. They should improve every day on every level. They should learn, get the knowledge, and apply it and make action. Right? So where can people get in touch with you, Ian?
Sure, fine, thank you. And that this will also be, I guess, another personal branding hack tip. You can find me at ianmoyse.co.uk and ianmoyse.cloud. So those two web URLs point you straight to my LinkedIn and Twitter profile.
Cool.
So I've just personally branded, rather than say to you, go onto LinkedIn and search for Ian Moyse. Now my name's pretty identifiable. But if your name was Paul Smith, for example, and I said, go onto LinkedIn and look for Paul Smith, you're going to find 10,000 of them and not know which one's me, right? Or I'm going to say, look for Paul Smith and put cloud after it, and then look for the one that works at OneUp Sales. Doesn't work, right? So all I do is say, go to www.ianmoyse.co.uk or ianmoyse.cloud, and you're straight there, guaranteed. And it's simple.
Awesome. A great idea. This is a powerful personal branding idea. I was like, wow, awesome, great idea.
It's easy to do and it's cheap. It's cheap. Unless your name's Kim Kardashian, unfortunately, then good luck buying the URL. But unless most cases, Go and get the URL now before someone else gets it. Right? There are other Ian Moyses who are in the tech sector, the same as me, weirdly. But I've got those URLs. Go and buy. I bought them for my children as well, by the way, so that in years to come, I've already got their name URL in case someone else buys it.
Wow, really?
Yeah, they're so cheap. So I've got them so that when at some point they want to get into the workplace, I can do the same for them, and it costs virtually nothing.
Yeah, exactly. Awesome. Thank you, Ian, for being here today with the Success Grid podcast. Awesome.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks.